So hi friends from the RoboCop group. I know I have been away for far too long, but I'm back and I'm ready to continue with the story. I want to thank you for following the chapters and for giving me feedback about them. So I thought about creative ways to come back to it, and one of the things that I thought is making this video review of the chapters for you guys and for myself too, because believe it or not, I have written so much that not that I forget what the story is about, but I need to be reminded of how the story is unfolding for me to focus and get back to it. Before I start making review of the chapters, I wanted to talk a bit about RoboCop to kind of like make, let's say, a small tribute to the movie. Not so long ago, and for a couple of months, some of my friends, fans from my RoboCop group, they have started asking me what I think about the new possible movie that might be in the making that is planning to ignore the sequels. So they kept telling me, so what do you think about that? Most of us disliked RoboCop 3 for reasons that we already know. I like half of the movie where Nancy Allen is there, and then Robert Burke, I think he did a good job, comes to the rescue, and that's a nice sequence for me. Then when Nancy is driving, and I remember back in the days when I was in my early 20s learning how to drive, and I was a very nervous driver, and I remember that watching those scenes gave me inspiration. So there's a part of RoboCop 3 I like, but most fans dislike it. So if RoboCop 3 is going to be ignored, perhaps it's what we have been waiting for, to bring Lewis back. However, most of us are overly attached to RoboCop 2, and I'll tell you why. RoboCop 2 for me represents, it was the vehicle for me to fall in love with the story. I'll go back in time and I'll let you know that. Well, the ones that know me, have known me for many years, know that when RoboCop 1, the masterpiece, the original one, written by Neumeier, came out, I was very young, and most of us were. So I was not allowed to watch the movie, as you probably imagine. My parents were like, no, this is a very, very violent film, not suitable for kids. And then my brother, who's also a Robo fan, he was even younger than me. So a few years passed by, and then RoboCop 2 came out in 1990, I think. And then Dad didn't take us to the cinema, sadly, but he did bring the VHS tape home. He rented it on my brother's, it was his 9th birthday, and I was close to turn 12. So I remember I was very upset, and I remember telling my brother, I don't want to watch it, because we were not allowed to watch RoboCop 1 when it came out, and everyone at elementary school were talking about the movie, and you and I were not allowed to see it. My brother, who's more forgiving than me, he said, I don't care, I just want to watch RoboCop, because we had previously seen the animated series, the cartoons. I remember my dad rented those for us, so we knew who RoboCop was. The robot police, that police officer that would take out the gun out of his leg. That's how we would remember him. So I remember we saw RoboCop 2 for the first time, and I didn't like it. So this is funny considering I'm such a big hardcore fan now. I didn't like it because I was still upset with my parents. Then the following day, my brother replayed the movie again, and so we sat down with some cake. It was from the day before, his birthday. And I saw the beauty in it. And I remember that I thought RoboCop is so cool. I mean, what events or what happened to him? I knew he was killed in the line of duty and turn into a robot. But I was very curious now, how did that happen? So I thought, he's so blue and beautiful, and he moves and talks like a machine. Because when I was a kid, I had this problem. I was not into the things most girls were. I was into action films, I was into robots, I was into comic books, and some of my female friends thought I was crazy. I have a friend for many years that used to tell me, why do you watch Transformers? That's a cartoon for boys. And I was like, why is it for boys? I like it. I mean, aren't we allowed to watch whatever we want? I grew up in a family where there was no discrimination or difference because of gender. And I think that helped me to be interested in things that were not very conventional for girls. In any case, I thought RoboCop was great. But then I saw The Police Girl. And I think this is the moment where I fell in love forever. I remember thinking, she's so cool because she's so pretty, but she's so strong, and she helps RoboCop, and I'm sure there's something more going on between them, because she seems like she wants to cry when he's broken into pieces, and I thought, this is fascinating. Then we have RoboCane. Who doesn't like RoboCane? I thought it was impressive, and I thought, this is in reality a very cool movie. My brother was right. So my brother and I got obsessed with watching it over and over until the people at the video rental store gave it to my dad and said to him, you know what, sir, you already paid for it. Then, of course, our obsession grew and we wanted to watch the first one. Back in the days, I'm talking about early 90s, it was difficult to get a VHS tape that was a few years old. And now I think back and I say to my students, it's so easy to get things now. Everything is online on the internet world, and then you can order movies, and then we have DVDs, we have Blu-ray discs. And back in the days, it was so difficult to get one VHS tape, or to get someone that had two VCR players that could make a copy for you. So I struggled hard to find the first movie, and then finally I found it at this small video rental store. So I remember that I told my dad that I had found the movie, but then he said, it's such a small place and looks so dirty, not very well taken care of. If we rent the movie there, it's going to get my VCR dirty, because he was very proud of his VCR players. Unfortunately, he passed away before DVD movies came out. So I remember that we were crying at home. It was like drama. And my mother asked him, get that movie for the kids somewhere else. Dad was an angel, and he wrote the movie to us. He found it at this video rental store he trusted in. So I remember when I saw RoboCop 1 for the first time, I thought, this is the best movie I have seen in my entire life. And I was 12 years old. And now that I'm in my latest 30s, I think the same way. So if it wasn't for RoboCop 2, I would have never wanted to watch RoboCop 1. I would have left that movie as in the list of long forgotten movies my dad and my mom never allowed me to see. But I fell in love with the characters first, and then I fell in love with the story behind them. And I have been sketching them for many years. So whenever they ask me, so would you like RoboCop 2 to be ignored? The answer is no. Besides, I'm a great fan of Nancy Allen, and I got the chance to chase her forever. I have been chasing her for many years. And I wouldn't like the work she did there to be dismissed. She struggles so much in that movie to portray Anne. And then we have Peter Weller and her, this dynamic duo. And it's sad because when I started writing my story, one of the things that I wanted was to write as much time for them together as I could, because we never got to see enough of them on camera. And this is something that people that have been reading my story have come to me and said, you see, that's what I would have liked to see, at least on a TV series or cartoons or whatever, because there was never enough time for them of them together. So I just think back about all the great work that Peter Weller and Nancy Allen did in the movie, and then Phil Tippett with RoboCane, and then we have the old man, then we have Johnson, and then we have Fax. I think she was a very cool, underrated character. So I think even in RoboCop 2 doesn't really match with RoboCop 1 because it's a different writer and a different director. I think it sort of gives some sense to the storyline of RoboCop. Then we have RoboCop 3, and my chapter 1 was loosely based on the sequence of RoboCop saving Lewis. And not so long ago, I was watching that scene over and over and over again, trying to find sense into things, and I felt saved every time RoboCop, makes the patrol car fall down, and then he shoots it, and then he comes out and saves Lewis. So I want to say to the ones that have been asking me about this, I have done everything that is in my hands to keep the RoboCop spirit alive. I think fans are the ones that keep stories and franchises and characters alive. We have the great RoboDog coming soon, and we're all waiting for it. We really want to know or see what those talented guys are doing with it. One of the things I wanted to say to you guys is that I've done everything that I could to keep Anne Lewis alive. I did all kinds of creative stuff. You have no idea. I wrote down all kinds of fan love letters to Mr. Ed Neumeier. I ran out of words to ask him for her to not be erased. I'm not sure if my words are going to be taken seriously. I'm sure this new product, this new RoboCop film would be a good thing, but the question we should ask ourselves is this movie going to be for us, the old hardcore fans that are overly attached to certain elements of the RoboCop storyline as it was presented to us in films, or is this going to be a new product that will attract new, probably younger fans than us? So that's the question that has no answer yet. So as I said, it depends on Mr. Ed Neumeier if he takes my word seriously or not. But I thought part of my mission as a fan, and as a female fan that had not much word to choose from when I was growing up, and then I found in Anne Lewis the woman I looked up to, the woman I wanted to become one day. So I thought that was part of my mission, to keep her alive. So I'll make a short review of the chapters. I'm planning to do this every week, so that keeps me motivated, and that motivates you guys again. I think I owe this to you, and I have to re-motivate you again, so you start going back and reading the chapters. And I apologize again for being away for far too long. So okay, we start with chapter 1. As I said, I had to write down my notes. Chapter 1, Controversy, Delta City Ruins. A few people that read the chapter told me that it was very soon for RoboCop and Anne Lewis to have this romantic moment going on between them. So this is why I decided to write an opening before this chapter. And I kept thinking, by the time I wrote the opening, I was already writing chapter 7, I think. So I went back and I thought, what can I write that doesn't interfere with the story that I have been developing between not only RoboCop and Anne Lewis, but Sergeant Reed and the Rehabs and the new characters that I created. So I thought about making this very short episode in which RoboCop and Anne Lewis are acting just as partners, as the way we have always seen, and they take down an Ed 209. And that's like a very short episode where the three of them are presented. So who doesn't love cute Eddie? So as usual, Ed 209 is malfunctioning. RoboCop and Lewis have to team up to take the robot down. So that's where the introduction ends, and then we go to chapter 1. For many years I was afraid to showcase my ideas about the characters, that there might be something more going on between them. And I remember that I used to sketch just action scenes between them and not other kind of action. And then I would hide my thoughts about them. So finally, writing this novel, fan fiction novel, has freed me in many aspects. So I was not afraid to show my thoughts anymore. A friend of mine, who is very funny, and a very close friend of mine, said to me, because as you know, I was interviewed in my hometown around 5 months ago. So I told him, you know what, I'm going to be interviewed on local TV about my project and everything. And then my friend said, you know what, you should pay me. So I should go outside the TV channel, and then I would carry signs, and then I would be against you. Like, we don't want RoboCop and Lewis to be together. You know, because controversy is a good thing. It's free publicity for you. He's crazy, of course, and he was joking, and I didn't pay him for that. So now if they come to me and say, well, you know, I don't agree with what you're doing, I get the controversy, or I get that for free. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the fans that have following my story, and I'm also thankful for the ones that don't agree with it. So that's free publicity for me. Anything that makes people start talking. Besides, I think everyone has the right to express their ideas. The same way I'm doing it as a fan, you know, everyone has the right to say, you know, this is the way I think about RoboCop and Lewis, and this is the way I think about the story, or whatever. So that's chapter 1. As I said, it's loosely based on the sequence of RoboCop saving Lewis from RoboCop 3. It has a different outcome. Lewis dares to do something that I have always wanted her to do to him, but then RoboCop walks away, you know, afraid and confused. Just imagine what that caused inside him. He's not a complete man anymore, has a computer merged within his brain, and in the end, well, he's a guy, so he walks away, like most guys. So we continue with chapter 2, OCP. This chapter is not really about RoboCop and Lewis. It's about the very complicated business relationship that the old man has with Johnson. I have always thought that Johnson is a character with potential. He has been repressed for far too long, and he has been silently waiting to become the next vice president of OCP. And the old man doesn't give him a chance. I mean, other people have come before him, like Bob Morton, and that surely makes him be resented against his boss. So in this chapter we explore that, the interaction between them. One of the things that I realized that I had to do whenever I was writing chapters was that if RoboCop and Lewis were not going to feature, they should be mentioned. So we don't forget that the story is about them. So they talk about the Ed 209 units. Sadly, they still don't work well. But there is a new model, the TDX units, that are also not working well, and well, the old man has his own plans now, and Johnson doesn't agree with them. The more time passes by, the more resentful he is, you know, about him not becoming a vice president yet. So that's chapter 2. Chapter 3, it's Metro West. Here I wanted to explore Sergeant Reed. Sergeant Reed is one of the characters that I'm very fond of. And also I think that in the movies we see or we hear so little about him. So I tried to give him some background story, and I wanted to tell the story, the RoboCop story, from his perspective. Imagine he's a sergeant of the police department, and he has to deal with lots of things every day. And then one day, OCP comes and they just put a robot to live in his station. So how would he feel like trying to relate to RoboCop? And we see a bit of that in the first movie when he throws the keys at him. So this is more about Sergeant Reed, but again, RoboCop and Lewis are mentioned. And then I introduce three characters that are my creation: Riggs, Adams, and Smith. 3 police officers that the ones that read part 1 already know that are going to be pain in the backside for both Robo and Lewis. And people kept asking me if I took the name Riggs from a Lethal Weapon, the character played by Mel Gibson. Actually, my subconscious mind did, not me. I have said it many times, but the idea of RoboCop Enhanced Reality came to me in a dream. So in this dream, RoboCop was in the patrol car, and Lewis was sitting on top of him, and she was wearing a dress, and she was confessing her feelings for him. I have repeated this many times, but in the conversation they have, she mentions a guy named Riggs. So that was one of the few things I could remember when I woke up. And that's why I respected the name. That's why I thought, well, okay, if my mind came up with that name, I'm going to use it. I didn't realize where I had taken it from. It wasn't until I was watching TV not so long ago. And then I was watching those movies again, and I was like, oh, so that's where my mind took the name from. Probably the years where I would sit down with Dad and watch action films with him. He was the one that got me into action films. I was always Daddy's little girl. But then there was always something missing. The girls in those movies were not heroines, were not strong, were not like Anne Lewis. That's why I found her in another movie, and I never let go. Anyway, chapter 4. Now RoboCop and Lewis are in Cadillac Heights, and they are resolving crimes together. But let's remember what happened between them in chapter 1. So there should be some tension going on between them, because they have this very complicated relationship that is evolving from friendship into something else. But those are unknown. That is unknown territory for them because, of RoboCop extraordinary circumstances. And Lewis has reached the bottom of despair or sadness or whatever, and she doesn't care about him being partially a robot anymore. But he does care, and then RoboCop still struggles with the memories of his past life. So this is what makes the story about them interesting. Because they were meant to be partners, police partners. They should be friends, help each other. But what if, as time passes by, something more something deeper starts to develop between them. So they're not very happy with each other when they're resolving crimes. Then they find some slot machines that belong to this company, Errotica, that I speak of in chapter 7. It's gonna become the characters in that company are gonna become important later on. So they have this disagreement, and I realized that fans like to read that, the interaction between them and them not being happy with each other, kind of like a couple that is fighting. I didn't know that was going to be an appealing element. One of the very surprising things that started to happen to me when I uploaded chapters in which RoboCop and Anne Lewis have this interaction, kind of like a couple, like they not fight, but have these arguments between them. They don't come to an agreement, and people like that. I don't know why, because perhaps that's the unresolved whatever tension, passion between them. And then I realized that some fans have this deep, dark desire of them getting together. So they started sending me quite a few things that I won't say here on camera, I thank them. I sincerely thank them for their opinions. So I thought, so I'm not the only one that thinks of the characters that way. So that's chapter 4. Chapter 5, OCP warehouses. Here it's about Reed again, and we hear about Kaplan and Mason for the first time. Of course, the characters I developed with those names, I took the names from the movies, but my characters are different, are behaving differently in my story. If I have to change the names, if someone asked me to change the names of them, I would. It wouldn't matter to me. But I thought if I use Kaplan and Mason as names for these two characters, the fans would identify with them even more. So we have the bad cops, the ones that I made up, Riggs, Smith, and Adams. But then we have the good ones. We have Kaplan and Mason. So they are talking about the stolen police arsenal, that several items, police items, start appearing in crime scenes. And RoboCop and Lewis have found a jacket, and then Mason keeps finding stuff as well. And they talk to Reed. Reed is a very intelligent man, and he knows that OCP, as usual, is probably involved in the whole matter. And then we have this funny conversation among cops, and that's it. So we have chapter 6. That's a chapter I cannot define so much on camera. It's about Juliet Fax and what happened to her in prison. I had a very unpleasant episode about this chapter. Two fans came to me, and they were obsessed with what happens to her in this chapter, and they wanted to develop it further. And then they sent me some text that I was not going to publish on the website. It was quite perverted and not very appropriate. The disclaimer is my story, it's an adult one, so it's not very suitable for young audiences, and I write that down on the website. But even if it's adult themes, I would not go into things that are already too dark or cruel or are very, very perverted. So I said no to these two people. So I didn't know that was going to trigger this chapter. This chapter is more about justice. It's about someone who tried to do a lot to get her own way in RoboCop 2. Again, I like Fax. I used to hate her when I was a kid. But then I grew up and I thought, no, actually she's a fascinating character. And I think she was even more evil than Kane. I love the scene where she shuts him down at the hospital and Kane is dying. It's like Kane is a very cruel individual, and he's the one that broke RoboCop into pieces. But then he finds someone who's worse than him. And that's something that I have always liked about her. She hasn't given a chance to come back and get her revenge. So that's what that chapter is about. Then we have chapter 7, and I will stop here because this video is already long as it is, and you guys know that I love to talk the same way I love to write. Someone who likes to communicate and communicate ideas. So chapter 7, Errotica. Errotica is company that will be important in part 2 of the story. It's about this war veteran that creates this company that tries to give a sexual romantic life to disabled people. It's sad to think that sometimes disabled people get the help they need, the artificial limb they need, but they don't really care about their needs as people, as their romantic needs, their personal needs. And this man goes through hell at war, and he was a very vain individual. And then, everything he suffers makes him compassionate. So in a way, this character, Thompson, he is like RoboCop to some degree. He had to go through hell, and be reconstructed for him to have this vision. So he was running out of money, he makes this company, and this company is very successful. So RoboCop and Lewis go to the company to give back the slot machines. So they're very surprised with what they see and find at this company. So we'll stop right here, and thank you for watching. If you guys want me to show drawings or a robot toy, a picture of a robot toy, or if you have questions for me or regarding the chapters or suggestions, whatever, let me know. Send me messages through the group Facebook, the way you want, and I'll probably, as I say, I'll try to record a video per week, so you'll feature in the next video. So you have a week to send me your thoughts or photos or drawings. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.